We've got a little bit of intel into the TV ratings for the RNC versus the DNC. And thus far, the DNC is winning, at least in terms of the television ratings. So 16 million TV viewers on night one. That's lower than the 19 million who watched the Dems opening night. Huge number for Fox News, 7.1 million, highest rated convention opener ever. No surprise. MSNBC, which had been the king of the DNC coverage, fell massively from last week. And I mean, I don't know that I would make too much of these because it's also a lot of people watch online at this point. Right. So what does that viewership look like? What does the television ratings viewership look like? To me, the bigger question is how much these conventions matter this time around. Do they have the same electoral impact that they have in the past? Because in prior years, you really have seen a sort of consistent bump for candidates coming out of their convention. What do you think, Saagar?
I think about it a lot. I just don't think it matters all that much. Dave Wasserman over at the Cook Political Institute, he tweeted this. I thought it was very astute, which is, look, the conventions, the message, what it actually tells us more is about what the parties themselves conceive of as their message, as opposed to something which is going to be long-lasting. Trump gives a full-length campaign speech every single day. We almost have 70 days to go to the election. He could change the theme. He could change. Circumstances could change. He could go one way. He could go the other. We have no idea if he's going to stick to this message. The RNC, this is how they conceive of themselves at this moment in time. In the past, you would have that message. You would hammer it home all the way to Election Day. Trump famously does not do that. And actually, I think the same is kind of the case with Joe Biden, which is the convention. He didn't get a bump out of the convention like they normally do. And I think the reason why is because events are so fluid that Americans are evaluating things within the context of the moment exactly that we're living in. And so overall, that message discipline is going to be in flux for both of them. And it's just such a crazy time that I don't actually think it matters all that much.
I just sort of think Joe Biden is who he is, right? Yes. People know who he is. They know that, like, he has done a good job of instilling this return to normalcy theme. Consistent from the launch of the primary, through the general election. It's not really a, like, here's an affirmative positive vision. It's Trump is bad, and let's just go back to things not being crazy. Trump, of course, God knows what he'll say today, tomorrow, the next day. He'll be all over the place. And so, of course, there's never been message discipline, basically, out of him. And in 2016, there were some consistent themes. This time around, there's not even like consistent themes. One day, he sounds a little bit like the, working class populist messaging. The next day, it's back to, we talked to the Trump campaign today, and they're like, it's about tax cuts and regulation, So it's just impossible to say with him. But I think even more to the point, politics has in a lot of ways taken a back seat to like what's going on with people in their day-to-day lives and what's going on with the pandemic and is there a vaccine and what's going on with their job and schools, and those things have really come to dominate what people are thinking about more so than, typically during a presidential campaign. First of all, we would be at the convention to start with. But second of all, there would just be much more sort of fervent coverage around what policies and what slings and arrows are going back and forth to each other. And then the last thing I'll say is a lot of views of Donald Trump in particular are very hardened.
Yes, they are.
There's not a lot of movement.
Most people know exactly how they feel about him.
There's not a lot of movement on the margins. So, if you've got people who really kind of want to be with him and they need an excuse, I think they'll get what they need out of the RNC to have that excuse, likely. But who knows, next week you could do something like outrageous and obnoxious that everybody hates again and send everybody skittering back in the other direction. So I agree with you. I don't think that I think he may get a little bit of a bump coming out of this RNC because I think it has shifted a little bit the perception of the narrative of him so far. But is that a lasting effect? Hard to imagine.
Yeah, I think that's right.
All right, more Rising for you after this.